person will say something and go, oh, I know that.
Yeah.
Right? I know that. Or you told me that before. What I have learned in life is resist the urge to say that. Just let them say it again.
Yeah.
Because if they're saying it again, it may be in a different context, or it may be, you're going to get something out of it. Just sit in the cut and don't be so quick to be, I know, I knew that.
Welcome back, everybody, to another exciting show, the About That Water podcast, where we help the sandwich generation talk about money, spend money, and enjoy their money with confidence. And I have the amazing, the one, the only, Toni Kennedy, who is the author of What's Poppin' Penny. How you doing today, Toni?
I love that you introduced me as an author because I'm working on a book, right?
Yes.
Would a podcaster be considered, like I've written it? It is an audio adventure. So am I an author?
I would say yes.
Well, okay. I would agree with you then.
Yeah. Because I would think it's a podcast on the back end. It's more of a, just a way to amplify your voice of whatever you're doing behind the scenes.
Okay.
And so, granted, yes, I call myself the host of the show, but as a podcaster on the back end, it's kind of like, well, what am I doing about finances? And that's kind of how I look at it that way.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
I like it.
Fancy. So, you created, What's Poppin' Penny as almost like an audio storytelling. Can you take us back on through your full career? You've been doing so many great things. Why What's Poppin' Penny?
The why of What's Poppin' Penny was in response to me applying to Spotify's accelerator program. And during that time, it was a very dark personal time because my husband was sick. And he was in the hospital and we didn't know if he was going to make it. And, I was very sad, right? The household was very sad. And the household at that time included my daughter and her oldest daughter, Penelope. She's since had 3 other children with her partner. She brought this application to me and she said, Mom, Spotify is looking for children's writers. They want to start up. Well, they started a program where they're going to make a podcast. Now, what I knew about podcasts, I grew up with a son. So through his teenage years, what I knew about podcasts were just 2 guys sitting in the basement cracking jokes and,
Right.
And I'm like, okay, Spotify, what you doing? But after reading about the whole program, she convinced me to enter. The more I wrote, one of the requirements was to write a story, which I'd been doing for 1,000 years for my kids. And I was a preschool teacher. So I write stories for my students as well.
Mm-hmm.
Never published, just writing stories. And so the longer I got into the process, the more I got into the process of writing this story, joy came back into my life during this very dark time. Thousands applied and 10 of us was chosen. And I was one of the 10 that were chosen. And that's how What's Poppin' Penny, based on, if you listen to the show, you'll know the backstory of the grandfather. Luckily, that's not the backstory for our particular outcome. My husband did get better and is fully recovered. But my little granddaughter's Penelope, and, that's Penny. And she's growing up in a multi-generational home with loving parents and grandparents and full imagination.
I like that. And one of the things that I had to commend you on is actually you're still writing through the hardships of what you're experiencing and to kind of clear your thoughts. Like, what was going through your mind as you were writing that?
They had asked for 2 stories, and the first one I thought was so clever and bigger. The first story I wrote for them, they were all based on Ella Jenkins songs. And Ella Jenkins is an old folk singer who geared her audience were children and families, right? And I loved this woman to no end as a child. She brought the sunshine to my life. Her and the harpsichord lady in my kindergarten class. There was a harpsichord lady who would come to school every week and at circle time, and she would sing all of these Ella Jenkins songs. And so I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to make every episode an Ella Jenkins song based on an Ella Jenkins song. And that'll keep our history alive as a kid growing up on the playground, in school, at recess. Don't even know if they still have recess. But, you know, you always stood in that circle and you were like, ooh, chihuahua, ooh, chihuahua, wada. Like, you know, here come Miss Sally. You know, you played those games that your older siblings played, that your mother played, that your grandmother played. All of these things that were just like in our culture. Those were the games that we played and deeply, deeply rooted us in our culture as something positive, something celebratory. Like it was our narrative. No matter what was going on outside, our narrative were those little hand songs, those jump rope songs, all of those things in my mind anyway. So I wrote that and they were like, this is pretty good. You got anything else? And I just looked around my house and I saw a child playing with her teddy bear. Because when my husband, Penelope, was born in our house, so like very early on, my husband became her best friend. Like I would just drop her off in his lap while I ran to the kitchen to do something, put a load of laundry and drop him. And I would often come in and they'd just be staring at each other. And I go, what are you doing? And he goes, well, I'm just staring at each other. And I go, why? And he's like, she's staring at me. What else am I supposed to do? But they were very, very closely bonded. And one of the games that they were playing was with this little teddy bear. And he would do the little motions and talk and she would giggle and everything. Well, she was playing with that teddy bear and giggling and stomping on him and giggling as if her granddad was still here. Like my daughter and I, my son, we were all very much in a deep, dark place. But this little child was carrying on in the familiar. And it sparked this knowledge, right? It sparked in me, oh yeah, that's what kids do. They carry on in the familiar. And so that's how What's Poppin' Penny, that's how the storyline came about. Those, I pretty much just stole from the people in my house.
I mean, I like to what say, so what, art imitates reality?
Yeah.
Yeah. And you already proven it right there. It's right to self.
Thank you, Anthony.
So one of the things about the story that I like that you have is that with the multi-generational family, I always call it, when it comes to the sandwich generation, it's considered a club sandwich, which is where you have the grandparents, the parents, the child, and the grandchild all in one cohesive, they can say like the household, but usually they all living together and supporting each other as a community. So why would you consider to do a multi-generational household to tell this story?
Mostly because I did not personally see a lot of children's entertainment in general that reflected a reality of a child. Even I like to use Charlie Brown as an example because most of us have seen that show. They literally make the parents sound like womp womp, womp womp womp, womp womp womp, right? Any adult, that's what they sound like. So it's just this group of marauding children. You look at most shows, right? And it's just a group of marauding children with no adults. And they are facing things and they are coming to conclusions like, oh, if I treat someone this way, they react that way. Like, you ain't got no home training, baby. You don't know that. Like, why are you having to discover all these things out in them streets? So that was why, that was the strongest as a parent, as a preschool teacher, as a grandmother. One of the things that I really, really like is that or I really glam onto is reality for children. Fantasy thinking really doesn't serve anybody. I'm full of opinions. Everybody grows up, but not everybody is raised.
Ooh, say
Every
that
child
again.
deserves to be raised. Most preschoolers that I know, they're around adults. They're conversating with adults. They're being like, their best friends are usually the adults in their lives, right? And yet shows don't show that. And I think that speaks to the success of Bluey, because it finally showed a parent's perspective on raising children and what that feels like from the parent's point of view. Now, this little dog only has to interact with these little other dog children for like 15 minutes.
Right.
So again, I don't think that's real. We can't live the mini episodes of Bluey. I'm tired, but I think the reason parents, because that's who decides what everybody's watching in the house anyway, they like that show, they relate to that show, is because they are seen in that show. And I think that was definitely my goal with What's Poppin' Penny, to have the parents, grandparents seen. And what does it look like when you have a preschooler in your home?
Yeah. I don't
I
have
just have,
kids.
I'm long-winded, but I have one
No,
more
it's
thing.
fine. No, please continue.
Because it really was a factor in how I did the show, created the show, wrote the show. My favorite show when I was growing up was The Waltons. It was quiet. It was low stem. It showed problems that I could relate to. But even though they didn't look like me, I still really felt like it was most reflective of my life, right?
Yeah.
So Get Out came out, right? All these years later. And we're all familiar with, what's it called, Anthony? The surrealism of being a Black and brown person,
Yes.
right? So I would have voted for Obama for a third term, or,
Yeah.
it's just the surrealistic aspects. You walk into a store, people are following you. My answer to that is I usually hand them stuff. Oh, so glad to see you. Here, hold this for me. Follow me.
I call it the benefits of being Black in society.
But my take on it, on my show, was I want to show Black realism. I don't want to double down on the stuff we have to deal with, right? How hard it is or how aggravating it is. I don't want to double down on that. What I would like to do is to show Black realism, where, you know how they say Seinfeld is a show about nothing?
Yes, it is.
My show is really a show about nothing. It's a show about the everyday little quiet moments in a Black household that's authentic, no stereotypes, nothing big is jumping off. How do we respond to the little things that happen constantly and daily in the life of raising a preschooler? That's it.
And that's one thing I do like about your story. You're such a great storyteller.
Thank you.
And once it's because you're not using so much, this you can call it African American English to the extent where it's like it's not understandable. Because, like how they typically do in most books or so forth, like it's so far back and try to bring in like the phonetically way of actually saying something versus just saying what it is, which to bring the light, it's like, growing up, you always say like, oh, you sound in this or you sound in that. No, this is just the way how we talk. And so I appreciate that in your story.
Thank you. Again, that just comes from personal experience. My mom grew up on the same plantation in South Carolina that her grandma was enslaved on, and they were sharecroppers. My mom was a sharecropper. She had a 5th grade education. But one of the things that she stressed to us was how speaking a certain way almost empowered white supremacy. So it wasn't like she beat us over the head with speaking properly or not speaking a certain way, but she did insist, she would correct us. What he did, what did he do? And this is a woman with a 5th grade education, but she, didn't grow up in a bubble. She was out and she brought because she did not want her children's futures to be limited by the inability to communicate on their jobs. She did not want her children to be pigeonholed based on their ability to command English. And even as late as, of course, a lot of us, we grew up with, you talk white. Why you talk white? Even my daughter, she's 33 now. So even in this late stage of being an American, right? She was smacked in the mouth once by a girl who said, well, we had to go to the principal's office. And the little girl said, I don't like her because she talk white. And I explained that, well, Paige isn't burdened by having to know several languages. She speaks English, and she can do that well because it's the only language she speaks. And I could see that resonate in that child. Like, the explanation did something to alleviate some kind of inferiority, I guess, in her, because she changed how she started talking in that parent-teacher meeting. Like, she was able, it was almost like we gave her permission to speak American English in a way that's not limited to her neighborhood. I don't know if that makes sense.
That makes perfect sense. As an educator myself, so I can just imagining how that meeting went. And going back to, like you said, children are susceptible to the things that they are actually familiar with. So if you actually give them room to breathe and feel comfortable being who they want to be instead of just trying to fit in, it just opens up the world for them.
Yeah.
So thank you for having that opportunity, to even bring your show to life. That's one of the things that we continue to do is just dream and think about things, but not really take action. And knowing you and getting to know you over these years, I know you move at a nice, comfortable pace to the point where it's not rushed, but even if it's a rush job, it's still the best rush job possible, if that makes sense.
It does.
So putting this together, what was it that kind of gave you, I guess you could say, the comfortability to kind of say, you know what? Yes, I know this is going to take off. Well, not take off, but I'm doing this and this is my thing now, to kind of fund that and actually be like, this is where I want to be.
I have a work ethic in me. My mom put in me as a little kid. I'd go, I don't care. Toni, make your bed. You can't just leave it that way. I don't care. And she would say, I don't care houses don't have roofs. I don't care cars don't have tires. Oh, this lady. And I'm 61. And to this day, my sister and I were kikiing over this. And my sister's 4 years older than me. And my mom's passed away a long time ago. She almost lived to, I think she was 98 when she passed away.
Wow.
And my sister and I were talking about the things we still do based on mom's voice in our head. And one of the things is if I leave even a spoon sitting in my sink, if I don't take a paper towel at the end of the night, right? And I don't wipe down my sink, get rid of the extra water in the sink sitting there.
I did the same.
This lady will not shut up in my head. I'm I still hear her. My sister's name is Greta. I'm oh, Greta, I still hear her. Get up out that bed. You get up. You go finish that kitchen before you lay down. Oh, and I got to get up to hobble my old butt down the stairs because some lady that's been passed on for 15 years is now telling me to get up.
Yeah, and they call it, I think that's what they call is legacy, because it's always I think somebody mentioned it. I can't remember who, but they was legacy is a dead man's wish or to continue on. And do you actually have to still live up to that? They're not here anymore. So why continue that story? And the reason why I bring that up now is because it's like in your, what you have the multi-generational story of Penny, like how does that actually resonate?
To answer the question that you just asked me, the reason the show looks the way it does is because I have a lot of pride in what I do. And everything through my generation of leaders, because I was fortunate enough to be born at a time where my oldest sisters and brothers, they marched in the civil rights movement. So Martin Luther King wasn't just a concept to us. He was alive. He was well. He was advocating. Malcolm X was alive and well and advocating. One of the things about, I lost my train of thought for a second,
Okay.
but Martin Luther King said, if you're a janitor, be the best darn janitor you can be. Have them floors be like, dang, look what he did. This is great. And so as a person and a product of that generation, that also was in me. It lended itself to my personality as well. So I mess around with a lot of things, but I don't mess around with my promises, and I don't mess around with my name. Y'all can mess around with my name all you want to, but I don't mess around with my name. And so when I got into the program, it was the first time I've ever been in a program like that. It was the first time I've done collaborative work like that. But I was also 58. So I had lived some life and I've been around some people, right? They started giving notes back. Notes. And I've been around the business enough that notes are a part of it, and they're a very frustrating part of it for any actor's process or any, not actor, but, well, them too, but production process notes. And what it all came down to, there are people whose job depends on saying something. They got to look like they're contributing.
Right.
Because if you ain't contributing,
why are you here?
We're going to cut off that paycheck. Right? So notes aren't always for you. They're, you know what I mean? To best serve you. So I already had that little inkling in my head that that's how the industry works. I started getting notes about the song. Lyrics are literally, what's Poppin' Penny? She's a little girl with brown skin, curly hair, living life without a care. What's Poppin' Penny? Note came back. Do we have to know that, right? Does that have to be in the theme song? Can't we find out about her being brown skin and curly hair in the show once we're in the show? I'm like, okay, in one ear, out the other. Okay, not every question deserves an answer. Just moving on. Then another one was the grandfather. That's morbid. The grandfather's deceased. Why are we talking to children about grief and death? I'm like, I don't know about y'all culture. But these ain't no new subjects in my culture for our kids. You know, we all remember the first funeral we went to.
Yep.
So we used to have them right. Again, I'm at that age where we used to have them right in our living rooms.
I think I went to one that was in the living room.
You know, it's just like, and what I really love about authentic shows and movies that come out like Black Panther, where, the Black Panther is talking to his dad or his mom, and she's like, we're so happy and we've prepared for this for a long time. Like, I don't know too many people in our culture who think this is permanent. Like, this is along the way and there is a definite ending point. And I think that's why a lot of our advice, although it's, it's kind of a little bit changing, but money wasn't the goal. Leaving your children a bunch of money to sit on, like you sit on a bunch and you sit them there. That, for me, in my experience, wasn't the crux of our legacy to our children. The crux of it was how to get to the next level without losing something in the process. Your humanity, your dignity, to value being of service to other people, to value, like, it had absolutely nothing like my dad left me $4 million and now I've got 8 at any cost.
Right.
Yeah. So I forgot what.
No, it's okay. You're on a roll, because it was mostly talking about just leaving a legacy and what does that look like. And you've answered it really well to kind of bring in the context of things that people are dealing with now and what we see on movie screens and what we're dealing with in everyday life of how do we move and actually operate. Because I can only imagine like the same thing in my head when I'm trying to clean up and I hear my mom all the time. It's like, did you clean out the sink and all the dishes out the sink? And I was like, no, I'm going to bed. I'm tired. And then, like you said, just waddle on down and get it done. But it's just, mom is still here. It's just that, mentally it's just still of those times where you did get yelled at or beaten. And it's kind of sad that we think about the things that we get yelled at for. Like, it's like, wasn't there enough praise? It wasn't enough praise in the house to kind of say, oh, you did a good job.
Right.
It's like, schoolwork done. Okay, cool. Did you finish your plate? Oh, you better finish your plate because you're going to get a spanking. Like, you get more talked to when you don't do what you need to do than you do when you're supposed to do what you want to do. So that's why I stay quiet and try to do as much stuff as I can so I don't have to get talked to or anything. I hope that was cool.
That whole thing that you just said was one of the biggest things in my life when I discovered Sesame Street.
Interesting.
It was because it was the first time I saw adults, and Gordon and Susan were there, so adults of color that were in conversation with children and not just giving directions to children.
Yes.
And that was the coolest thing I'd ever seen. And then I would go try it out in my house and I'd be like,
well, what get thrown at you first before you said that?
hey, what are your thoughts about flowers?
Right.
And my mom be like, talking to me about no damn flowers. Go in there and pick up those. And when you're done with that, go.
It was always something to do, wasn't it? Always something to do. Like, man.
Okay, conversation, no.
Right.
But it was too late. I've been exposed to it. And if I couldn't have it, then I was going to grow up and be it. So I'm the lady, which I guess is why I gravitated toward preschool. I'll talk to a child all day. Like, we will just be it. And the one thing that I've discovered about talking to children, the conversation you have with a child is the only conversation happening.
Nice.
When you're talking to an adult, you could be talking about the weather, and the conversation they're having in their head is, I wonder where he got that shirt from.
Right.
It look kind of cheap. How much money ain't they over there making? It's like those conversations are happening, and they have a way of filtering or making their way into conversations. They actually start to come out. And then that's when conversations take a turn, or you feel uncomfortable, or it's like, oh, I didn't realize that was the conversation we were having. But when you're talking to a kid about Spider-Man, that's the only conversation they're having. That's it.
And I think that's one of the things I enjoy talking to you. It's like the conversation just goes. And the cool thing, because, yes, you lived a lifetime of stuff, and I'm still learning and trying to figure things out. And we both still trying to figure things out, because you'd be like, hey, what do you get for this? And I'm like, I don't know. Let's figure it out together. And it's always a joy having a conversation with you. So, which goes back to setting up this podcast, going back to, you mentioned money. I mean, this is a financial show. Why not? What did it take to kind of get your show started and off the ground? So somebody who's brand new listening to this was like, I want to do a kid's show. Setting a budget for that. What does that look like?
I would say, first of all, do you listen to podcasts? I have learned that has to be the first question I ask when people ask me about podcasting and budget and anything, my first question I have learned is always, do you listen to podcasts? How many podcasts do you listen to? How many genres of podcasts do you listen to? And if the answer to any of those questions is zero, none, I can't help you more than you can help you. So if you're not helping yourself by understanding the genre that you're trying to get into, I can't help you. I can't waste my breath that way. And that's like not from a mean point of view. That's just for me a reality. So if the answer is, oh, I've listened to this one, what do you like about it? I like the sound on that one. I like the storyline on that one. I like how they use music on that one. Or, oh, I don't like this one at all for a particular reason. At least I can see, okay, so you're serious and you're trying to join the community. And it's not just about that wallet, for them. Because podcasters are truly what I've discovered, a community of people who will go that extra mile for you. This is funny. I don't know if you can hear that. It's
Just a
a
little
piggy
bit.
bank that I got my granddaughter, and it sings when you put money in it, but it's sometimes will just sing on its own. But I'm on about that wallet, and I'm a
You
little
have money.
piggy, pick me up. The more you put in, the more I grow.
Such a great jingle.
I know, right? But so from there, if the question can be answered, do you listen to podcasts? Then I know that you're somebody I want to invest my time into as well, right? Budgeting for a podcast. My podcast isn't like yours. I don't do interviews. Mine is, I always say it's like a TV show that you're watching on a hoopty TV and the screen goes out, but the audio stays.
Okay.
So you're following along. It's just an audio show with no visuals. The visuals take place in your mind. So I have a cast of 6, I learned by doing in Spotify, and some things I learned really poorly because I didn't realize they had a lot more money than me. So I was trying to live up to a standard. For instance, I think the SAG wage for voiceover actors is like $150 an hour or something, or for the first hour.
Oh.
And then, so that's what I paid my actors. And it wasn't until the very end that somebody in the industry said, those aren't industry standards, you don't have to pay $150. Okay. I learned that on the back end. But as far as setting up the podcast for the budget, I knew that I had to include hosting fees, like I'm with Buzzsprout, right? That goes into it. So it's my actors' fees. It was the editing time in the studio, and then the studio's editing time for me. That was 3 separate line items. One was recording, one was sound design. Well, actually, it was editing, pulling out the takes you wanted, right? I recorded all my actors individually, and then we would go through and take all of them and make the show. Yeah. And so that meant that I would have, for every episode, 6 actors, I would be recording 6 different times, at that studio's fee.
Right.
Versus if I had just a group session, right? Then I would only have to pay that one time for the studio time.
I see where you're going at, yeah.
Yeah. But because that's not how it was done at Spotify, I didn't realize things like, this platform Riverside existed where I could have all the actors in one room at one time and record.
Yeah. Because with this platform, you actually get the individual cutouts of their audio too. And one thing that they recently added was that I can mute them automatically if they're not saying anything, so that even if their breathing is in there, it won't pick up.
Nice. And then there was sound design. And then there was a session for music where I would put the music in, and I would hire my musical director to create specific music for specific episodes. So it was money flying out. Now, the nice thing about my husband is he is not an artist, but he really appreciates good art. So when we did the first episode, well, I go back. It wouldn't apply to you. It applies to my genre. When I would write an episode, I had what I call my 5 people, right? Because everything we write, we think is brilliant. We just think, yeah, it's not, people. It is not. So I would write an episode. I would send it to my mom friend, and she was kind of a cheerleader. But so her feedback was, this is so great. And then the last 2 lines would be like, what if you did this instead? And what if you did? And the reason I'm asking them to read it is for actionable feedback. When you talk to people and you're asking them to review, please only talk to people and request actionable feedback. Otherwise, as an artist, as a writer, as a producer, you do not grow. And all of us have miles to grow. So that was the first one. Then I would give it to my very busy mom friend who's like, I ain't got time for this. So she was with the red pen and then I would go back and implement that. So whatever she said, this lady got this, what I implemented. Whatever she said, my friend in the industry as a podcaster, I would go, would you read this? And they would read the script and they would talk about sound. They would talk about, then whatever they did, I would send it to my friend in education. And then I would get feedback. And the last person I would ever give a script to was my husband, because he was not interested at all. He could care less. He had no interest. But if I could entertain that person, if I could get that person to be invested in what was going on, then I knew it was time to record.
Yeah.
So I would encourage everybody, get your 5 people, ask for that actionable feedback. You don't always have to take it, but it might stir up a kernel of, oh yeah, not that way, but it would be better if it was like this way, And of course, all those people did that for me for free.
Good. Because I'm about to ask that too.
Yeah, they did it all for free. So the biggest, but being that I was taking it so seriously and our personal finances were being invested and on the line, I had QuickBooks, everything lined up. I had my Excel spreadsheet. I had all the, if I paid for something, you got to give me an invoice. I know that sounds so silly, but
I understand. Of course, I
things
understand.
I did not realize, and it's just like, okay, I need an invoice because things got to match up. It's just got to match up. Don't try to remember every dime you spend. Write it all down. Get receipts. Log it all. Because I think, how they say people will start a podcast and then it's less than 20 episodes in,
Yep.
they'll quit. I think if they had that cash reality of what they were actually spending, they wouldn't be so fast to give up, because it is a heavy investment. People often think about the heavy investment in time, but you've gone out, you bought the microphones, you subscribe to Riverside, you subscribe to, all the things that you need. And, a lot of this stuff is pulling off monthly, right? I realized, because I used to dread posting and writing posts. And then somebody said, oh, ChatGPT will do that for you. I was like, oh, okay. Never used it in my writing, but for my social media, I did use it, because I could say, I want to talk about this. And then it would give me that and it'll say, oh, cool, cool, cool. Okay. If I just change this a little bit and I post, now I sound like a coherent person, right? $8 a month I was paying, right?
Oh,
Right? So that had to go in as a line item. There's nothing about my whole process of podcasting that is not a budget line item. And that makes me accountable.
And one of the things is that a lot of people do overlook some of those moments is because they think podcasting is it's fun. Yes, it can be fun. The financial side behind it to get this off the ground does take a few dollars. However, that's why I always say, like, man, I really wish it could have continued, but you don't know what the editing cost is because sometimes hiring an editor, I think the average prices around that I've seen is anywhere between 150 to 300 per episode. And if you're not careful and you're brand new, that could actually impact the way how your show's going to be just from editing. Recording. That's the reason why I do everything myself.
I didn't know that there was podcast editors. I was in a studio with now a Grammy nominated editor, right?
Wow.
Yeah. I was playing with the big boys, and not that was even intentional. It's like, okay, that's usually me. Okay. But I did not, it was like late last year, 2025, somebody said to me, no, podcast editors, they set a set rate.
Mm-hmm.
They give you like 1 hour and then it's a set rate. Let's say it's $150 and that's it. Because I could spend 6 hours editing.
Yeah,
just edit, and 1 hour. And it's like, that explains why a lot of shows sound like they do.
And even the big ones. And I'm like, so you couldn't spend just a little extra time just to clean it up just a little bit. And that's what causes me to kind of utilize different tools and applications because, as an independent to do all of these things, it does cost for each of these AI tools or each of these sound quality tools. And like you mentioned, the equipment. And I like to hear other podcaster stories on like how they actually get started. Like, what are they using? Because, but using a full production team and actors. And I'm like, well, it's just me. But also it talks about like the volume and the quality too. So, as far as me, I can do a high volume because low cost. Whereas you're high quality, low volume, big impact. That's the beauty of podcasting. Like we can pick and choose how we want. And you actually get to see that, what do they call it? The triad of the cost versus resources versus time, and just kind of like see how that moves around so quickly. Like you can't have it all. There's no way. Yeah.
And usual Toni fashion, for me, I can see an end. One thing I don't like is like I say, if I don't have something to say, I know how to be quiet. Right. If you follow me on Instagram, if you follow me on anything, I do not post a lot.
Not at all.
You do not see me popping up. Hey, I was just enjoying a sandwich. Thought I would come on and tell you about it. Like, I ain't got nothing. People busy. I'm busy. Got nothing to say.
But you do show up though.
I show up. I show up. I do. But I try to do it in a meaningful way, or at least what I feel is a meaningful way. I mostly use the platform, my Instagram platform, to spotlight other people that I support. That's my way of supporting other people by using my platform to elevate their voices. So if you look at my stories, like of course on my grid, it's all what's Poppin' Penny, but 8 times out of 10, if one of my stories pop up, it's about you. It's about, library dads. It's other people that I want to support. What's Poppin' Penny? People ask me all the time. Even my husband has asked me. He's like, this is really great. Do you want to continue to do it? They're like, no, I don't have anything else to say. And they're like, but the show is taken off. Don't you want? And I don't know if that's a result of watching British TV for a lot of my life.
They do cut off quickly. It's like one season. Okay, that's it.
Because it's like contracted at the beginning. You get one season. It's not like American TV where if the audience, like you can grow your audience. They don't care about your audience. Doctor Who is still on to this day. And the audience for Doctor Who has gone like, some seasons are more popular than other doctors. All right. My doctor's the 10th Doctor, David Tennant. So it's like, that's at the height with Matt and David and everything. And then after that, it kind of went down. But that show is still on because the BBC is like, no, this is a legacy show. And then you have other shows like Ricky Gervais' The Office, where they're like, okay, you get 3 seasons. But we're doing so good. What 9 out of 4? No.
Because sometimes 3 has been a lucky number.
Yeah. And that's my show. I knew the story I wanted to tell about Penny. I knew everything I wanted to give the parents, the teachers, the children, starting from the first show about grief and just our way of keeping people alive. You can still half the stories at the dining room table when the family gets together are just laughing at people who have passed on. Like, remember when you did this? Like, that's just a part of our culture where it's not somber. That person's life meant something and it brought joy to us. And we're not just willing to let that joy go because they passed on. We actively keep that joy in our life by celebrating and talking about that person and their little antics. And then the other thing, the second episode where she goes and she visits her grandmother and they have a piece of cake and her grandmother tells her about the history of the cake, right? And how it pertains to their personal history. But in the overall scope of things, what that grandmother actually did was she explained racism and segregation in a way that did not frighten that child, nor take hope away from that child. But it was a plain fact. That's how the world worked. And that's why we do certain things that we do now to ensure the world does not work that way anymore. And then she just skipped her little butt back home with her cake and she's like, oh, okay. No. The episode of the Magical Family Reunion, that's where Miss Reed Soskin was in. Betty recently passed away at like 104. And she and her granddaughter played the same character. One as the older person, one as the younger person. But in that show, they're driving and Penny asks, are we there yet? And her grandmother's like, we're almost there. You see that river? That's where the Clotilda is. That's where the Clotilda sank. And conversation moved on. Now a lot of parents are like, what is the Clotilda? Okay, you look it up. Last slave ship to come into this country. And this grandma just said it to her baby. Even so, in the future, when that baby hears it again or is introduced to it again, she has a concept of this thing. And to me, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to give mirrors to the people that it represent. And then I wanted to give windows to people who do not share that experience, may be intimidated by it, may not understand it, but it's all around the family setting and it makes it less scary, Yeah.
And I like that by doing so, it's almost like they're planting seeds along the way. Because sometimes, when we talk to people, like, oh, yeah, that's where so-and-so happened. And we like, just move on about the topic. And that happens a lot in life. And I'm glad that you brought that back in. Because, like you say, you can just look it up if you want to. And most people do. Because it was like, why do you... Like, it's almost like you threw something out there like a question, but never went back to answer it. Like for me, when it comes to movies, they was like, "Oh yeah, so do you want these eggs fried or something like that?" And then they have a whole nother scene, a topic, and I'm like, "Well, did they ever get their eggs? Did they like the eggs, or what happened? Like, where's the rest of it?" So, and I like that you do that in your story as well. And that's why you talk about like good storytelling. Like it gets you to think and drop little seeds in there.
Thank you, Anthony.
You're welcome. So you talked about one of the things is that first off, congratulations on winning the Black Podcast Award.
Thank you.
Yeah, because I was in the audience and I was like, what? I know. I didn't even know you put in. I was like, what? I know that podcast. I know Toni.
Thank you. It's getting recognized, and I just think it's because of all the intent of each episode, right? I think it's because I knew it had a finite point, and as little kids like to read the same book over and over. Little kids like to watch the same shows over and over. Like that's their thing, right? So I never felt a pressure to make more because I know this ain't going nowhere. Kids are going to be listening to this thing over and over and over. And I get those letters that confirm that. One of the nicest letters I ever got was a mom who said, it was an email, and she was like, yeah, we had to sit in the car again because we were listening to the podcast and we could not get out the car until it was over. So we finally get out of the car. I'm like, I got to go make dinner. While she was making dinner, her 5-year-old came in. The episode they had been listening to is What Do You Believe? And that's where we talk about religion. And her 5-year-old comes in and she's listened to this episode 1,000 times, she said. But she finally comes in and she's like, Mom, do you believe in God? And she said she turned off the fire on what she was making because she realized, wow, she's been thinking about this for a while. And this isn't a side conversation. This is the main event happening right now. Dinner's going to have to wait. And she said, I want to thank you so much for making that episode and giving my child permission to question why we're engaged in religion. What does it mean personally for our family? She grew up going to church. I guess she just figured Sunday we wake up, put on clothes, we go. But now she has like an idea was introduced to her that it was optional. There was a bigger why, like, why am I doing this? Why are we doing this? And so she had an opportunity, she said, to talk to her child about her faith, not just religion, but her faith. And they bonded because her child realized, I have faith. I have a faith as well. And this is how it shows up when I practice it. And this is how it shows up when mommy practices it. So the pressure to make, I have 2 seasons, which actually I recorded the entire episodes. And because I only had 10 episodes, I said, you know what? I'm going to make them smaller. And now I got 2 episodes out of 1. My dollar just doubled.
Nice.
So that's how we ended up with part 1 and part 2. Again, there was an additional benefit because it made the episodes shorter to meet the attention span of the child.
That's good. And probably some adults too, because
y'all be scrolling.
Pretty much, you know. And I know my shows are usually longer, mostly because the people that listen to the show are actually people who are going to and from work. I have yet to have somebody say, like, Anthony, can you make your shows shorter? And because of that, I'm like, okay, I am reaching my target audience, and they actually are enjoying, you know, like you said, if you're done the questioning, you're done everything like that, we can calm out the episode. And some episodes, I'm like, man, I really wish I could have dove in a little further into this. It just seemed too short, even though it was only an hour. but I'm like, we do have to come to an end eventually.
And can
that's
you
why I leave
invite those guests back?
Of course. And I always say leave a comment if you want them back. I haven't seen any comments. So it's like,
No, I mean for you, where you say, I wish I had more time with that person. Do you ever go back?
yes. I haven't went back to them yet because think about it, I still have other shows that I want to get out, but I do plan to do that this year. It's actually start reaching back to some of the people that I just feel like I want to learn more about what they're doing now and how things have been since our interview. And just kind of do some more deeper dives and like, hey, did you actually did make that dish again? Because I always ask, what was your favorite dish? Has there been any new money mistakes? Or how's your conversations around money has changed since our interview? And what does that look like? So that is something that I do plan to do eventually, but I still keep in contact with everybody I have on the show. Follow them, share their stuff. So like you said in your stories, I try my best to share the people that been on the show, no matter how long ago they were, to kind of push their content out there.
You have to follow up with Robert. I don't know his last name. He's the security.
Yeah, he wants to come back on. He was like, can I come back on every 60 days?
He needs to come back on, Anthony, because it was that was such a great show. I love the dynamic between the two of you. You both have he made money security very conversational. You make everything very conversational. It doesn't feel like somebody's handing you homework assignment. And it really did not feel like, and the beauty of you is that you are curious and you come at every interview with a genuine curiosity. So as a listener to your show, I feel like I'm sitting with you learning as you are learning, even though it may be stuff you already know. I've never heard you say, and I admire this about people, it's something I had to learn in life. A person will say something, you go, oh, I know that.
Yeah.
Right? Oh, I know that. Or you told me that before. What I have learned in life is resist the urge to say that. Just let them say it again. Because if they're saying it again, it may be in a different context, or it may be, you're going to get something out of it. Just sit in the cut and don't be so quick to be, I know, I knew that. And that's how you are. Even within your interviews, some people say something at the top of the interview and they'll say it like they never said it before at the bottom of the interview. And you never go, well, you just said that.
I didn't know you pick up on that too.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and thank you for that. And I really do mean it and that's the whole purpose of my show, is to kind of make it seem like it's new. And sometimes for the listener, if it's their first time listening to the show, it is new. And granted, I've been doing this for about 5 years, so I've heard a lot about finances. And yes, sometimes it's the same stuff. However, like you said, context matters. I mean, the content and the context matters more than the content.
Yeah. I love your show.
Thank you.
Do. I really do. You have me doing things my husband's been trying to get me to do for 20 years. He's like, what you doing? Well, Anthony said.
If I get an email from your husband, be like, look, can you tell her about this next? I was like, okay, I got you. That's funny. Because, I just try my best and try to learn and educate the world. And I mean, in the sense of what you were saying as well, it's just being able to have people to see themselves in that situation and to see somebody else who's been through it and how do they get out of it and how do they survive. That's where the story is at. That's where they call it the moneymaker. Like that is the crux of the show, of any show that you listen to. Because if you do a book without stories, it would be as thin as this book here. The book here that I'm holding in my hand is called Common Sense, A Simple Plan for Financial Independence. It gives you everything you need without the stories. Very thin. And it's got just took his sweet time, wrote down everything about finance, no stories. It is what it is. The reason why I picked it up, because I was like, out of curiosity, that this is what it will look like without the world in it. Because if we just say like, hey, Toni Kennedy, okay, she did this, okay, that's it. But if you talk about the stories of how was she feeling when this happened, what was going on in her mind, what was going on around her, the environment, dealing with the kids, and, you know, maybe she had bubble guts that day. Like, we don't know. But we know that this is what she did in the story. So that's the reason why I love doing these interviews, because it really opens up the mindset around why people do what they do and how they do it and what really draws them in, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think I know it's a big thing right now. You have to set yourself up as the expert. And the thing that I really love about your show, in my mind anyway, you do not do that. You resist that. You resist, and even the questions and the follow-up questions that you'll have for your guests, you'll ask somebody, they'll say, well, I'm the expert, blah, blah, blah. And you'll go, so what made you the expert?
Right.
But you don't say, it's like you ask the question that begs to be asked that a lot of people don't ask. Like, what classes did you take? How many years on the job set you up for this expertise? And you know, somebody's answer, a lot of people, you know, some people will say, oh, thank you for asking me that. Because I didn't just go to one conference one time and now I'm an expert. I've been doing this for 30 years. You know what I mean? And then some people will be like, I went to one conference one time and now I'm an expert and I can show you. And you're like, oh, okay, cool. All right, cool. Next question.
I do. And you really studied me. Okay.
I do. Time is, I learned at a very early age the importance of time. And I'm not polite enough to waste mine, right? A lot of people are very polite, but it'll end up to wasting time. I get something out of your show. I get a lot out of your show, and it's not just financial advice because, you know, chances are I'm going to ignore that anyway.
Right.
But what I get out of your show is the pleasure of listening to two people talk about something that one is passionate about and the other is curious about. And I love that for me.
Thank you for the best feedback I've gotten. I never thought about it in that dynamic, because that's ultimately what I was trying to portray as the host. Is like, that is my job, to be curious. And the reason why I don't like canned questions, like, this is your first time actually being on the show to get to see the behind the scenes of being a guest. So I don't have set questions. It's more so just let the conversation flow. I might have one question that I'll ask that I'm very curious about, which is why I brought you on in the first place. But everything else is open to the wind.
Love it. I love being here because you ask one question at a time, and my little brain isn't trying to hold the question, answer one question, hold the other two questions. So it really feels very relaxing. I can do this. I know I'm socially awkward. I don't feel socially awkward in your presence because it's just very in the moment.
And that's how it should be. I mean, that's, well, going back to what you said earlier, it's just having a conversation with a kid again. And I guess I'm the kid. It's like, nothing matters. We're just here. Just having a good time.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is it.
So now we have to go through a lot. So we've still got a couple segments to go through, the third and fourth segment. But before we get there, there's one thing that you wanted to mention, which was talking about, now that you have all these accolades, you did so many great things with the book. I mean, not with just the book, but more so the podcast. And you're not monetized.
The book isn't out yet.
Right. Well, I'm looking at the background. I'm like, I can clearly see this as a book. Like, just make it happen.
I do want to tie the podcast with literacy.
Yes. So you monetize it with literacy, you say?
No, I said I do want to tie it together with literacy. One of the reasons why, you know, when people say, well, why don't you do more, more, more? I already saw the end, but that wasn't the end of the series. I don't have a finite amount of money, right? So my next endeavor is to take the series and create a book for each episode. So that means hiring an illustrator, all of those things. Lap time with their kid, reading. I know the power of a book. I know how books live with kids forever, right? The sound of your voice reading that book, that experience of that book. Not every kid may have access to the podcast. More kids will have access to books. So it's like, okay, that's the end of me recording the podcast. It's the beginning of the literacy, adding the literacy part to that.
So it's like the reverse of an audiobook. So most of the time people will write the book first and then they have the audiobook, and now you're just giving us the audio. Okay, now I want something tangible. So I can flip some pages and see this. Question, because this is practically the third segment, which is the features, which is, would you have a graphic novel that people can use on their Kindle, or will this strictly be physical? Because it's the same to me mentally. I'm looking at this like this technically the same thing. It's just that one's actually printed out on sheets of paper. The other one is just a PDF you slide through with your finger.
I would
have like a graphic novel for the phone.
I would put all my efforts, I would say, and I wouldn't say I would never make it like available on Kindle or whatever. But as an educator, it would definitely be a hard print book for many reasons. Children learn to read when they love being read to. So that's the first step. Does the parent like reading this book? If they do, they're going to read it a lot to that kid. One of the other things that happens, children read pictures. When my kids were growing up, I would say, read the pictures to me. Read to me. I can't read. Yes, you can. Read the pictures. In my classrooms, I had a portion of time where kids read to me. And It was just the pictures, right? They were falling in love with reading and storytelling, right? Then there's I'll give you a word. And it's usually a word that's also a letter, because I work with small children. So there are a couple of words that are also letters of the alphabet. You're learning the alphabet. You can also learn words. The word A is also a letter of the alphabet. The word I is also a letter, right? So when a parent is sitting or a teacher is sitting with the kid and they're reading the book, they say, I'll give you a word, transitioning from letters to word. And your word is I. So you take your finger and you're going along, and every time you get to I, the kid goes, I, and then, so now it's like, oh, I'm killing it. I'm reading. I'm doing it.
Right.
And so they're falling in love with that. And then finally, I'll say about reading, it's one of those things where we learn to read, and there are rules of reading. And no matter what culture you live in, sometimes your rule is, this is the flow of the letters, right? Of the words, or this is the flow of the words. And I'm an American, and so this is the flow. And so little children, as you're pointing and they're absorbing, oh, this is the way to, and you'll see them imitate you. They'll go. And then page turns to this, right? Pages turn to the left. And so there are rules you are introducing to children in bite-sized pieces. So by the time that they get to preschool or kindergarten, some kids read as early as 3 because they understand the rules, because you've introduced the rules. So I don't see a lot of value for children in education. I see a lot of value for convenience by introducing it, as a Kindle or whatever. But as far as kids go, that whole tangible feel of everything, it's all working together. We become very cerebral, but we all start out as kids. We learn through taste first. Everything goes in our mouths, babies, and they're like, take that out your mouth. And you're like, why you want me to be dumb? Okay, I got to taste. And because that's just the process of our evolution of how we learn and how we process everything. So, yeah.
I like that. So having it, because you got me thinking about the call response of music. And when I say, I don't know, when I say Poppin, you say Penny, Poppin. And then, kind of bring that call response back into music because that's how we did growing up. So it's just kind of like, we just are big kids.
Yeah.
If you want to learn something new, go back to elementary school and redo what your teachers were doing for you to kind of pick that. Okay, this is all coming together now. I like that. So would you consider your book as a rule book then? From not just how you operate and read the English language, but how you operate and move within your family.
What do you mean rule book?
Well, because we follow the story of Penny and how she navigates in having open conversations with the different generations that she lives in. It's almost like the rule book for the child and the ability, the comfortability that they should have in their own family to kind of say, hey, I thought this will be a great topic to talk about. And if they can't, this is kind of like, hey, we want this rule in our household. How do we almost operate in that same way?
As a preschool teacher, right, I learned very early that if you're not supporting the parents, you're only doing half the job and you're only going to get half the job done. That's my personal philosophy. Most things that I do, I wrote a CD, right? I have a CD out, Miss Toni and the Macaroni Band.
Oh, nice. You actually got a music CD?
I do.
I'm gonna have to check this out.
My kids, my preschoolers, they named it. They named the band. It's Miss Toni and the Macaroni Band because macaroni rhymes with Tony. And then I took in my little pink, they told me my dress has to be pink and poofy. And so I wear crinoline underneath the dress. And I have a little puppet that go into preschools and I perform a show that's less than 30 minutes long. And it's just about the preschool day told through the perspective of the child, right? You can find it on MissTonySings.com if you want to learn more about that one. Okay. But
how will we go in there?
But the CD is an 18-song original CD, 18 whole songs, right? And it follows a NACE accredited day, National Association of the Education of Young Children. I was a NACE accredited teacher. And so there's a drop-off song, there's a potty song, and it's the only one that's addressed the adults, and it's called Just Be Patient.
Mm-hmm.
There's a nap time song. There's a wake up after nap. It goes through the entire preschool day. And each of those songs, they started out as little ditties, right?
Mm-hmm.
Tristan wouldn't come into the classroom without crying every single day, right? Every single day. And so one day I just ignored him and I looked behind him and I saw Ashton and I said, who's that walking through the classroom door like she did the day before? It's Ashton. It's Ashton. Good morning, Ashton. And she pushed Kristen aside and she went, I'm here. And then everybody ran out the classroom to the threshold so I would sing them through the thing.
Nice.
Finally, Trishan, he wanted his song too. Mm-hmm. He came in, he broke it down, break it down. And he broke it down. But then we had to start every day with that song. And it's the first song on the CD, right?
Okay. Yeah, I see the on the thing. Yes. In the morning. It's so cool.
So in the morning is actually, you're right. That's not the first song. In the morning is the first song. And that one deals with object permanence. Preschool teachers, they will hear 1,000 times a day, where's mommy? And you'll go, she's at work. She'll be back to pick you up at 3. Where's mommy? Same question over and over during the day. Because what you're saying is, here's an abstract and here's an abstract. Now you go work with those abstracts. So you got this 3-year-old. So my song was the mommies in the morning all go to work, the daddies in the morning all go to work, the children in the morning all come to school, the children in the morning all come to play. So now they have their assignment. The children and preschool in the morning is a happy place. So they're going to a happy place. So my request for each parent was, whether you're a stay-at-home parent, work from home parent, or you go to the office, take your child to the space where you work, right? Point out something in that space. So Anthony has a child. Anthony's child is now in my classroom. Anthony is working from home. And I say, take your child into the office. Show them, is that a duck on the top shelf behind you? Show them the duck on the top shelf behind you and say, this is my office. This is where I work. My duck sits here while I work. Do you want to hold my duck? Do you want to sit in my chair? This is what I do. So now, and then please tell me. And then now when your child says, where's daddy? I go, oh, he's in the place with the duck. He's in his office and he's working. Empowerment, right? Oh, I know that. Okay, cool. Yeah, all right.
I love that. Okay. Wow. So you've done quite a bit. I didn't even know you sang.
I sing to children for a reason. They're a less discerning audience.
You go where you're loved, okay? Like, I understand, right? Like water, least resistance.
But each and every one of those songs has a purpose behind it to empower the parent, empower the child, because that's where children thrive. If they know what's going to happen next, a lot of people go, well, why do they want to read the same book over and over again? Because they know what happens next.
Because you said that, that's the reason why I have my show to set up that same way, is to provide the predictability. Everybody knows, like, hey, we're going to start off what we're going to talk about. I'm going to learn more about you. Then we're going to talk about the futures, and then my final 4 segments. It's the predictability of the show. But also it's the same thing like with music. You listen to the same thing over and over again until you get to where you can hear the song all day long. You feel like tired of hearing that song, but that girl so scandalous. Like you still in it every time. The same fact because you know what's going to come. Yeah. So I like
and for a preschool child, for a child, that's called empowerment.
Okay.
A lot of things, kids control nothing. May not be the parents' point of view. It's like, you control when I wake up, you control what I'm going to eat, you control everything. But from a child's point of view, that's not the reality they are living. So when they're introduced to something that they can become the master of, wow, then they're happy.
Yeah.
They're secure.
And I'm thinking of even still when it comes to your money, you know that paychecks come in every 2 weeks if you show up to work every 2 weeks, like throughout those 2 weeks. And he was like, okay, well, I know I always go to the gym, or I always know I'm going to gotta play my $2 scratcher, you know, your predictability. So like, if anybody's really watching you or care to watch you, it'd be like, you already know where she's going to be at. It's 5 o'clock. She's already in the house, you know, watching her stories. Like for those routines, man, to get me thinking a lot more about stuff too. Okay. All right. This would be a whole nother show, but because with the routine stuff, it's bringing back Charles Duhigg, what talks about the habit loop, because you got the predictability. These are the things you do. But ultimately, what is it that you're getting as your reward? And the reward factor, either it really drives everything else that you do. So like you said, just cleaning the room, making sure the sink is clean. That's your reward, is that you get to go to sleep. But the trigger of it is that it's dirty. So you got to go in, your routine is clean it. Now, how do you clean it? That's whatever your routine is, but the reward that is clean, so that you can go ahead on and go back to sleep. And having that loop that they also further in the book talk about is the feeling behind it. And how do you feel after you get the reward? And that's what keeps it going. But it gets you to think like, when is it a good time to break that. And that's why I said this would be a whole nother show, because I'm like, my mind is going different places. Of like, when do you call it quits? And I like that even with your podcast, that you already not call it quits, but like, this has an end. Let it end. Even though I'm sure you have so many more stories, you can kind of gravitate off different paths, but let it end, let it breathe while you build it vertically now that you have the nice solid foundation. Okay. Did I put everything right?
You did. And you're the
Okay.
first person to give me words for what it is, because it's only been a feeling, right? I know it when I see it. I know what I'm doing, but you were the first person to say, okay, now you're going to build vertically. And it's always been that way. It's nothing I've done with the show has been in response to something else. This has been the plan all along.
Can't wait to see the movie.
Ultimately, yeah.
I'm waiting for the movie.
Yeah. That has been the plan all along. And the nice thing of watching other people and watching their careers grow. My sister, she's in finances, and I have a sister, she's been a trader. She's done all these things in finances, and watching her patience, I've noticed that the aspect that a lot of people don't talk about being successful, reaching those lofty money goals, is the amount of patience people have to exercise. Opportunities, if they pounce on it in the moment, the risk is high, but they'll do it anyway. And sometimes that pays off and sometimes it doesn't. But then there are people who also will say the opportunity came, but I let it pass me by, because I've noticed the pattern of opportunity is it shall come again. It shall come again. I'll position myself for when it comes again. That type of, and I think that is the difference between someone who, is a gambler and someone who is building their wealth.
Yeah. I like that. Man, that's great. Because I'm thinking of where do we go from here now? But I'm using we as a general sense, but we got to tie it back to you, because it's about you, which is, where do you feel as though that you need to improve on, just to kind of, for your career or even your life, just to kind of improve upon what you've done? Like, what do you think that you need to focus on?
I have to focus on, I want to say, doing my due diligence. I rely a lot on, if I know a person and they know this person, then this person must be a legit person.
The transaction effect.
Right? But I've been caught up more than once, more than twice, right? I knew this person. They knew this person. This person was as dishonest as the day is long, even though this person is not.
Right.
So if I had just did my due diligence on this person, then I would have, I called them and I give them the dollar amount, right? Lessons. So I got my $3,000 lesson,
Okay.
I got my $1,500 lesson. Some people may frame it like, oh, that I got scammed, or no. If you didn't learn something out of that, it's not about the other person. They did what they were going to do.
Yeah.
Right? This is your lesson. This is not their lesson. This is your lesson. And so as I move forward, I'm a little bit more, I like you, but.
Totally understand. Yeah, because at the end of the day, like you said, before we hit the record button, was when money is involved, the relationship's a little different. Because this is a business now. This is a business transaction. It's, I love you, but this is business. Like, I have things to do, and you're in my, not that you're in my way, but you're not going where I need to go or positioning me to where I need to be if we do business.
I don't covet money, but I have become a little more precious about it.
Well, as you should. I mean, you put some work into it.
I didn't have that mindset before. I would give a person and have. My husband came home one day and the sofa was gone. And he's like, what happened to the sofa? And it was like, oh, my nephew, he didn't have one. He's like, now we don't have one. But that was my mindset. Yeah, but we had one. So I could give it to him to make his life better. And that wasn't just like the sofa. That was like money. That was because I all had this mindset of, oh, it's going to be okay. It's going to be, yeah, don't worry about it. You know, and that's cute for a minute, but that's not an adult mindset, especially an adult trying to do business. Even though my purpose for my podcast, it's not a money endeavor, right? But there's no need to just throw money away.
Got that right.
And for some people, their podcast is a money endeavor, right? But I had to learn in my personality that coveting is not the same as respecting when it comes to money. And a lot of times people will look at somebody, let's say like a Mark Cuban, and I think he walks that walk really well. He was one of the people that I saw doing it that was like, okay, I can do that. I can't do Jim Cramer. I can't do, like, I don't have any respect for, because it's like, to me, it's just like, it's a gimmick. It's I'm going to separate you from your money.
He's a fast talker.
Yeah. And like a lot of people you meet, whether they're celebrities or not, they're in your personal life. There are people who approach money like that, or they're like, I'm going to have $1 million home and I'm going to have this and I'm going to do that. And it's like, okay, well, you should be thinking this way too. And it's like, that's a little bit too much like coveting to me.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are people who just respect money. My husband's that kind of person. He has a healthy respect for money. And when I look at Mark Cuban, I'm sure that he has a fabulous lifestyle with many, many trappings of the fabulous lifestyle. But when I hear him talk, or even his body language, it doesn't feel like a flex. It doesn't feel like an that's the byproduct of the accomplishment. Money's the byproduct of the accomplishment. And that to me seems more like a respect for money. So that's where I'm trying to land more in my life.
I like that. All right. Anything you want to leave the person that's listening to this before we dive into the final four?
Yes. If, as you've discovered, I'm a broke retiree in Florida making a podcast and trying to make books. Oh, girl, you broke and in Florida, like all the boxes. If you'd like to support the show, there's an opportunity in the store to purchase merchandise for the show. So it's you're able to purchase a little teddy bear.
Oh, look at the teddy bear.
Yeah, little TA teddy bear.
And for those of you who listen to the audio, it's a brown teddy bear with a red shirt on.
Yeah, good memory, Anthony.
Yes.
And he's little TA. You know, I have other things in there, t-shirts, magnets, things like that, little tchotchkes. And that just helps me to pay the illustrators, pay my Buzzsprout feed, you know, just little things like that to keep the vertical building of it. There's also, you can donate one time. I don't believe I have monthly, but you can make a small donation one time. Every small thing really, it helps a lot. People say, you know, little donations mean a lot. And that is absolutely true. Right now, I'm working with bringing American Sign Language to my YouTube channel. Like people have looked at my YouTube and they've been like, you could do this with it or you could do that. I'm like, I got to cover. Don't worry about it. I got to cover it. Because ever since you helped me put it up, Anthony, I always knew that that title card was just going to sit there until I roll out the American Sign Language and to be able to make the show even more inclusive. And what I learned is that children who are deaf, most children who are born deaf or at some point become deaf when they're little, right? They're born into families of hearing people. Okay. So it's not like we may think, well, if the adults are deaf, then their child is deaf. No, we could have, most of the time it's hearing people. They suddenly have a child who is deaf, and now they're communicating with that child. And what I learned is that most households, they create their own language particular to them. So this may mean eat in your house. This may mean eat in my house. And it's not until children go to kindergarten, oftentimes it's kindergarten, that the standardized language that the teacher is using is American Sign Language. So if you can imagine you grew up in Russia and your parents all of a sudden moved to America and you're in a classroom. So now you're struggling not only with the language, but you're struggling with the subject. They've just asked you now learn math in English. That's pretty much what happens. That's the scenario for deaf children. When they get to school, a new language is introduced. That language is introduced to the children. It's not introduced at home. Right?
Yep.
At home, everybody's still talking Russian.
Yep.
So my goal for adding American Sign Language is to expose not only children, but their caregivers, their family members, to the standardized American Sign Language long before they reach kindergarten. So a lot of things for me are not like nice to have. They feel like must-haves to me. Like this feels like a must-have so that these babies and their families are prepared. And that's what I think I'm just figuring out. That's what my purpose is. Like, have kids prepared to learn.
So with that, you ready for the final four?
I am.
Righty. Question 1. What does wealth mean to you?
Wealth means to me living within my means. There is nothing like, because I hear the word wealth and I think empowerment, right? There is nothing that makes me feel more secure than living within my means, because I understand that my means are going to change. They're not always going to be like, when you look at friends, right? And they all have these fabulous apartments, and then your kids grow up and they're like, where's my fabulous apartment? No, 20 is egg crates, the sofa somebody threw out that your friends help you pull inside.
Yep.
Tiny square footage. That, that may be your means then, but it will grow. I remember my brother-in-law, my sister was shopping in some fabulous place like Bloomingdale's or something. And my brother-in-law, I looked at a tag and it was like, oh my God, $100 for a shirt? I'm in my 20s, right? I'm still at Goodwill. And I was like, I will never be able to afford things like this. And I said that out loud, and he was standing there and he goes, yes, you will. And he didn't even elaborate. He just went, yes, you will. And from there, I was like, and along the lines, I realized your means change.
Yeah.
But if you respect living within your means, you can grow without that big slide back of what happens when you go beyond the debt that happens when you go beyond your means.
Like that. Okay. And I like that you mentioned, I would call it those magical people that come in your life to kind of give you like that little tidbit. And
yeah,
you might not remember them, but you just remember that one saying that they had, and it just opened up that epiphany. That actually, I might need to start adding that as one of my main questions. It's like, what was that one nugget of information that has really changed your perspective of life. I think that's cool. Number 2, what was your worst money mistake?
I think I must have blocked it out because I remembered the question and I had an answer. And just then I'm like, my worst money mistake was back in the day of you can rent this home and buy it. You pay the rent and then the rent will turn into a down payment and then you can buy it.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't happen that way.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it did not happen that way.
Like, did they say why it didn't? Like, what happened? Why didn't it work?
It was a situation. The situation was.
Well.
I'm sorry, I get so silly with you. The woman had the house she was renting. Then I came along, skipping along, and she's like, "You got a basket full of money? Hello." And so she said, "We can," and there was literally nothing other than the leasing agreement. All the other verbiage was just talk between us. So I think it was like 10 or 20% of the rent was to go to the down payment, and the down payment, once it reached, 20% of the house, then she would take that down payment and then we would go into the transaction of purchasing the house. None of that was written down. I know.
Lesson learned.
Lesson learned. Lesson learned.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's.
I was young.
Okay.
Yeah.
But we all learn. We all learn our due diligence for sure when we go to that.
You keep making dumb mistakes. Right. Yeah. You keep on, Toni. Just keep on. Okay. I still got this lesson right up my sleeve for you. You want to keep learning the same lesson.
Number 3. Is there a book that inspired your journey or changed your perspective?
Yes. Man Child in the Promised Land was the earliest one. I'd never read something so honest about the Black experience as someone growing up in poverty and encountering ways of getting out, but it was so alien to you that you went back into it, and like the number of times for the things to happen, no apologies about what was going around. Nobody was villainized, you know. It was so powerful to me as a kid. I read that book when I was about 8.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just like the first time there was no moralization of just being poor. It was just economics, baby. This is how we roll. This is what we're doing. So that book was very, very, very powerful for me as an 8-year-old. Ragtime.
Mm-hmm.
Just the perspective of class and race. And I read that book around the same time that I moved from St. Petersburg, Florida, where we were very, very poor, to I moved in with my sister and her husband, and they were well off. And that was the first time I encountered classism. I knew all about racism because I grew up in it. But when I'd asked to go to a girl's house, and my sister was like, "Oh, no, we don't go to that neighborhood." I'm like, "But they're all Black."
Right.
Right. And so that opened my eyes and ears as I looked around, and I could see sometimes we could be some bougie people, you know. That was the first. So that was Ragtime showed that to me in that book. And then finally, the most influential book I think I've ever read that influenced me was The Godfather, Mario Puzo's. Even though people talk about the movies a lot, if you haven't read the book, you're missing something, because the deep dive he does on character study, motivation, it's like a textbook to me. It really is like a textbook to me. And one of the things I like to ask people is, in The Godfather, which character are you?
Interesting.
Which character do you see yourself as?
Let's see, because I haven't watched the movies. They all kind of blend together to me because the way how it is. Probably
Out of the main characters,
out of
the
main
three sons and the
characters,
father.
I'll probably be like the oldest.
Sonny?
I think.
You're
Yeah.
more like Sonny? You're so mellow.
Which one? Maybe I'm bad with the sons.
There's Michael. There's Fredo. There's actually 4 sons, the adopted son too. There's Sonny. There's Tom Keegan, who they adopted, and he became the consigliere. And then there's the godfather.
Okay. So, I mean, because it's been so long, I don't remember it. Like, it's not remember, because I don't watch it that often to where it's like in memory. I had to look it up right now. Okay. Yeah. Because it's Sonny, Frito, Michael, and Connie. But the main children are Vito and Carmela Colon. I'm not sure which one I would be. Okay. The hot-tempered one, which is the oldest son. The middle son was considered the weakest one, which is Frito. And then you got the youngest son who initially stays away from the family business and eventually becomes the Don, which is Michael. And then you got Connie, which is...
No, that was his wife.
That's a wife.
Or his sister.
The only daughter. Yeah, they said the only daughter. And then you got the adopted into the family who serves as the Tom, as the advisor. I would probably say Tom. Probably be the adopted.
I love you, Anthony, because I have a personal opinion that we're all Tom. We're all just doing the best we can with what we got. And when a guy says, "Oh, I'm the godfather," I'm like, "Oh yeah, all right. I ain't never talking to you again." I'm like, "No, you're not." Nah. But I think we're all Tom. Tom Hagen, he is just doing the best he can as consigliere of that family with what they're throwing at him every single day. That's it. So
I'm going to actually read the book.
That book, I love that book.
Okay. I'll more than likely have the audiobook. While I'm editing and stuff like that, I would just listen to stuff.
It's a good book. I like it.
Number 4, what is your favorite dish to make?
My favorite dish to make it's a tuna tier. So I have a mold that's vertical. It's got a bottom, and I cover that mold with sesame oil.
Okay.
And then I put in tuna, chopped tomatoes, chopped red onions, chopped parsley, and what else do I have in there? So it's tuna, tomatoes, and then I have raw tuna. And then the last ingredient I have is rice. And I put saran wrap around it and let the mold set. And then and then I flip it over and I release the mold, and it's a tuna tier of all those things. Then I sprinkle it with sesame seed and a little wasabi on the side and some, what is it? I'm looking right at it. What's the sauce?
Worcestershire sauce? Or are you talking about yum sauce, soy sauce?
Soy, thank you.
Okay.
Just went out. And then a little soy sauce. And I could eat that for every meal, every day. My kids fortunately love it because they ate a lot of it growing up.
Well, it's good that they still want to eat it, because I ate a lot of pork and beans growing up and I refuse to eat pork and beans. As an adult. But talking to my mom, she said she did it out of necessity. So I was like,
yeah,
it's understandable.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Here we go to the very last question of this show. And I'm sorry to see this show end, but we got to get back to our lives, which is, where could people find out more about you? Across
socials, even though I'm not doing TikTok anymore, but I still live there if you want to see what's there. On Instagram and YouTube, I'm Hey, H-E-Y, What's Poppin', Poppin, Penny. The show on Spotify and Apple, anywhere you listen, it's What's Poppin' Penny. And then on LinkedIn, I'm Toni Kennedy, Toni with an I, Kennedy. And you'll see the little logo of Penny and everything there. Or no, you won't. You'll see me. I'm sorry, y'all. You see me. So I got this little sign. Fabian was nice enough when I did this event. So it's What's Poppin' Penny. And then there's the little logo. Just look for the little girl with brown skin and curly hair with the magical teddy bear and her talking cat. And you've landed on What's Poppin' Penny.
Well, Toni, this has been amazing. And it's always good to catch up with you. This time it's actually recorded, but any other time, it's just us shooting the breeze.
You're absolutely one of my favorite people just to hang out with.
Oh, I love hanging out with you too. We just sit for hours on end and just talk about anything, which is great. Popping in and out of business topics to podcast topics to, just everyday life. And, you can just really see and, just being around you and your energy is just all about like, what, this got to work. And no matter which way you make it work through partnership. And I can't thank you enough for, showing me the light of the importance of actually building connections and networks. So I just want to say thank you.
Anthony, you're welcome.
And so for you who are listening, if you found this really important, please take a moment to go ahead on and like, subscribe, and share the show. Let people know more about Toni. Check out Toni's show, What's Poppin' Penny, and definitely stay tuned and locked in with her because it's a lot that's going to happen because of this show. She's going to take your child to so many different places, and you actually might learn a thing or two. So definitely tune in. All right, everybody, we out.